For most people, Rome's rise feels like destiny. The legions, the discipline, the great roads carving lines across continents, it all seems inevitable, as if Rome was designed to dominate the Mediterranean. But history is never that obedient. Empires don't rise because fate chooses them. Empires rise because the competition collapses. And before Rome controlled the ancient world, it lived in the shadow of a very different kind of superpower, a city that didn't conquer its empire, but traded its way into one. A city that didn't rely on citizen soldiers, but on capital. A city that challenged Rome not with ideology, but with economics. And for a moment, it looked like the future belonged to them. Welcome to the Financial Historian, where money, power, and the past collide, and nothing is ever as simple as the textbooks make it. To understand how Carthage almost stopped Rome, you have to wipe away the oversimplified version of ancient history we usually hear. Rome is painted as the model of order and civilization. Carthage, a mere footnote, a rich trading city that produced one genius general and then disappeared. But that version misses the truth entirely. Carthage was Rome's first great economic rival, and its strength didn't come from myth or military virtue. It came from something startlingly modern: trade routes, financial innovation, logistical mastery, and an elite class that ran their city like a global corporation. Long before Venice, before Amsterdam, before New York, Carthage built a commercial empire that turned the Mediterranean into its marketplace. Founded around 814 BCE by Phoenician merchants, Carthage grew from a coastal outpost into a powerhouse by mastering three things: the sea, commerce, and logistics. Rome expanded by taking land. Carthage expanded by controlling bottlenecks: Sicily, Sardinia, Corsica, the North African coast, and eventually the mineral-rich lands of Spain. It didn't need sprawling farmland or citizen armies. It had shipyards, merchants, and capital. Its double harbor, one for trade, one for war, was an engineering marvel. At the center stood a circular island that served as an admiralty, surrounded by ship sheds that allowed Carthage to deploy fleets faster than any rival. This wasn't just infrastructure. It was the engine that fueled a commercial empire. Rome, meanwhile, started as a landlocked agrarian society, powered by farms and citizen soldiers. Its economy was local, slow, and deeply tied to the land. For centuries, Rome barely cared about ships or maritime expansion. As long as Rome stayed on land and Carthage ruled the sea, they could coexist. But the Mediterranean is not kind to coexistence. It rewards competition. And eventually, that competition erupted into the Punic Wars. 3 long struggles fought for markets, money, and maritime dominance. These wars weren't conflicts of culture. They were economic collisions. One power built strength through manpower and farmland, the other built strength through trade and liquidity. Their rivalry became unavoidable when both reached for the same strategic prize: Sicily. Sicily wasn't just an island. It was the crossroads of Mediterranean trade. Control it, and you controlled the region's economic arteries. Rome wanted security. Carthage wanted revenue. When two rising systems fight for the same resource, war stops being personal. It becomes mathematical. Rome entered the First Punic War with almost no navy. Carthage entered as the reigning maritime power. But here the financial divide emerges. Rome adapted. It copied a Carthaginian warship, mass-produced it, and financed the fleet with unprecedented public loans. Carthage leaned on its established strengths. Rome invented new ones. What followed was not only a military contest, but a confrontation between two economic models: a commercial trading empire versus a militarized republic learning to weaponize credit. To see why Carthage was so different, look at how it fought. Rome used citizens. Carthage used professionals. Its armies were multinational: Numidian cavalry, Iberian infantry, Balearic slingers, Greek specialists. Carthage bought expertise the way companies today hire contractors. It treated war like an investment, and as long as its treasury was full, the model worked brilliantly. But Carthage's system had a fatal flaw. It relied on money, not cohesion. If the payments stopped, so did the soldiers. Rome's armies grew stronger under hardship. Carthage's military fractured when the treasury stumbled. After the First Punic War, Carthage went broke trying to pay its mercenaries, a financial disaster that sparked a brutal internal rebellion. Known as the Mercenary War, a war born from debt ended in bloodshed. Yet Carthage bounced back. Hamilcar Barca, father of Hannibal, shifted the city's focus to Spain, building a new financial base around silver mines. Here, the Barcid family created something remarkable: a semi-private empire funded like a corporate enterprise. Spanish silver financed new armies without depending on Carthage's cautious oligarchy. And this is where Hannibal enters the story, not just as a brilliant general, but as the living embodiment of Carthage's economic strategy. He commanded a multinational force funded by silver, supplied by global networks, and designed to break Rome economically, not merely militarily. His goal wasn't to capture Rome. It was to shatter Rome's alliances, destabilize its tax system, and weaken the credit that kept its armies in the field. Hannibal wasn't just fighting battles, he was conducting economic warfare. But Rome did what it always did: adapted. It raised taxes, borrowed heavily, nationalized land, sold public assets. Rome learned to finance war as aggressively as it fought it. Carthage forced Rome to evolve into the financial powerhouse it eventually became. As the Second Punic War dragged on, the Mediterranean became a testing ground for two financial systems under stress. Carthage relied on liquidity, quick, efficient, flexible capital. Rome relied on solvency, endurance backed by citizenship, taxation, and credit. Liquidity wins early, solvency wins eventually. Hannibal understood this. That's why he tried to make Rome's allies defect. If Rome's tax base broke, its credit line collapsed with it. But Carthage misjudged Rome's resilience. After the disaster at Cannae, where Hannibal destroyed a massive Roman army, Rome didn't give up, it raised more armies. When cities defected, Rome tightened control elsewhere. When revenue fell, Rome's elite funded the war with their own fortunes. That level of civic cohesion was something Carthage's commercial system could not match. Meanwhile, Carthage's own government hesitated to support Hannibal fully. The merchant elite feared losing trade income and avoided risky investments. Hannibal fought like a statesman. His government behaved like a cautious board of directors reviewing quarterly losses. In a war of attrition, that mindset is fatal. Rome's counterattack targeted Carthage's financial heart. Spain, Scipio, Africanos captured New Carthage, seizing silver reserves, hostages, and supply depots. An economic decapitation. By the time Scipio invaded North Africa, Carthage was financially exhausted. At Zama, the final battle, Carthage didn't just lose militarily, it lost because its economic foundations had collapsed. Rome imposed crushing indemnities after the war, strangling Carthage's commercial power. And yet, incredibly, Carthage rebuilt again through agriculture, manufacturing, and trade. By the mid-2nd century BCE, it was wealthy enough to alarm Roman senators. Their fear wasn't military power, it was economic recovery. Cato the Elder's famous line, "Carthage must be destroyed," was less about safety, more about eliminating a persistent competitor. And in 146 BCE, Rome erased Carthage, not just its army, its economic footprint. But the deeper story is this. The struggle between Rome and Carthage wasn't about morality. It was about economic structures. A trade empire versus a territorial one. A system powered by capital versus a system powered by citizenship. Replace triremes with cargo ships, silver mines with lithium, mercenaries with PMCs, and the pattern feels uncomfortably modern. Some powers today use global supply chains and financial leverage. Others rely on alliances, military reach, and national mobilization. Some depend on flexible capital, others on collective endurance. The models haven't changed, only the technology has. Carthage's downfall wasn't its economics, it was its lack of political cohesion. Prosperity united its merchants, but not its people. In crisis, the system fractured. Rome, by contrast, fused its economy with its identity. Citizens didn't just fund the state, they were the state. And history shows, when financial systems collide, the side with the stronger social contract, not the bigger bank account, usually wins. In the end, Carthage challenged Rome with capital. Rome responded by reinventing its own economy. Carthage lost the war. Rome inherited its playbook. The student defeated the master, and then became the master by absorbing the master's lessons. That's the uncomfortable truth. Economic systems don't just clash. They merge. They transform. They reshape the world in the process. If this changed how you see history, hit subscribe, because the past still has answers, especially when you know where to look.